All right, so I'm Mount Allen. I bring you greetings from Northern California and the San Francisco Jazz organization we call SFJAZZ. And I'd also like to recognize the Preuss Middle School and High School team, which is Mercy, Tamima, Daryl, thanks. And Preuss has been a longtime participant of a program that we call Exchanges from the Stage. It is a part of a program which recognizes the use of this technology, the REN technology, and CENIC. The bigger piece is called Opening Portals to the World of Jazz, and it includes public schools, public libraries, higher education institutions, and cultural institutions such as the Exploratorium, the Getty, and California Academy of Sciences. What the program does, it takes advantage of the existing programs that we have, that we present, our concerts, and looks for opportunities to take the technology and spread it out so other folks that are not in the room get to participate. In the past, we've had collaborators in addition to the Preuss School, schools in Alameda, Los Angeles, and Sacramento counties. And in addition, a host of universities that include Harvard, University of Michigan, University of Pitt, Berkeley College of Music, UC Irvine, UC Davis, Emory, Columbia, as an example of who we're dealing with. And then I'd also like to take a moment and recognize the SFJAZZ team, Steve and Harry and Brian and Jake and Martine and Masanori and several other of the production team, and also some partners and Kobe and Julia from CENIC and Cisco. And just a quick word about the SFJAZZ Center. We're the SFJAZZ organization. We're a 35-year-old 501c3 that opened a state-of-the-art performance center back in January of 2013. We're in the heart of the San Francisco Cultural District, and we are the most prolific presenter of jazz in the country with almost 500 performances annually. And as we also have a very engaged Department of Education, which provides a really great platform for many of the things we do. Professor Delaney stated this morning with a little improv from Bruce Lee, the art of being there without being there is what we actually focus on. So one would ask, what brings the Preuss School and SFJAZZ together? It's the connectivity is what does that, the connectivity that CENIC provides. And that also answers a very common question I often get. It's why is SFJAZZ on CENIC? Referring to our honored keynote speaker again, SFJAZZ has the awesome accountability of putting the A in STEAM. And as of December 2015, we share that accountability with the nation's public schools in terms of the ESSA. So that's the Every Student Succeeds Act. And in addition to science, technology, engineering, math, art, and music are now elements of that and are part of a defined, well-rounded, compensatory public education. So with that in mind, we can take a look at some of the education reforms that have taken place over the years. There have been a series of them. The ESSA is not the first. And one would have to wonder, why do we still have such a large gap in our achievement, especially as it relates to public schools in urban environments? Why? One possible reason could be funding. There a lot has been written. A lot of academic research has been explored in terms of the disparities of the funding paths in urban schools in particular. And the research clearly points out that in urban communities, they receive less funding than their non-urban counterparts. This differential in funding also impacts urban kids' access to arts. It's not just the straight STEM pieces that this impacts. In these funding scenarios, these institutes often get less money for the arts as well. And there's further research that recognizes this diminished access to the arts correlates with lower academic testing and less engagement, academic engagement. And then other scholars contend that the urban environment itself contributes to lower achievement, pointing out ongoing segregation in housing, segregation in schools, and this lack of achievement leads to a lack of engagement, or maybe it's vice versa. But it also has been stated if you can impact engagement, then you're on the path to impacting achievement. A well-researched framework for impacting engagement is called culturally responsive pedagogy. And an article just published last month, February, in Psychology of Aesthetics, Creativity, and the Arts, made a great quote, or a telling quote at least. It says, "Art education curriculum in schools often follows a Western historical canon that can be seen as culturally irrelevant to Black youth." So, African Americans, Latinx Americans populate the urban communities of our country most often. And jazz speaks directly to these communities. The music of jazz, however, is not a vehicle unto itself. It's also, referring back to our keynote speaker, a metaphoric gateway language for engineers, educators, and artists to contribute to the challenges of relatedness. And there's a body of research supporting this discussion as well. So, community is no longer defined by location. I think that was also in the keynotes conversation this morning. And through the insightful, committed work of CENIC and peers, community is now defined by access. Our colleague, Huang, who I believe is in the next room giving a talk of the K-12 high-speed network, states, more and more, the technology is going to be very important in leveling the playing field. Jazz greats are now tenured professors in many of our honored institutions of higher learning. They're Guggenheim Scholars, MacArthur Fellows, Grammy Awardees, and they want to make a difference in these communities, the underserved communities, the under-resourced communities, and actually have committed to participating in the Portals program because they can do that from their home institution now. SFJAZZ is committed to providing that bridge to empower the communities where they live. So, we're going to watch and engage, we're going to watch a short video, and after that, we will engage our Preuss colleagues to have a conversation and talk about the program exchanges from the stage from the perspective of their institution. Are we ready?
All right, we're so excited to be here and to also have our kids all the way from places like San Diego. Can I hear y'all from San Diego? All right. Cool. How about our kids over at Preuss Middle School? How y'all doing? Yeah. Okay. And how about our kids here in San Francisco? Let them hear you. There we go. The music that we play was championed by people like Duke Ellington, Charles Mingus, Nina Simone, Billie Holiday, and we've been inspired by that music.
I wish that I knew how it would feel to be free, and I wish I could break all the chains holding me. From Mississippi, Watts, and Oakland to Ferguson, we all had to weep and cry the blues. All those whose lives are done, from legislation, news, or gun, we hold in silent space for you.
Another round of applause for Marcus Shelby and his wonderful band, everybody. And I would love to get questions from every school if we can have that represented.
My school is OLG, and my question is, why does jazz only have certain instruments?
Jazz kind of came together right in New Orleans, and so we had brass instruments, we had the drums and things like that. So I think it came out of the tradition of New Orleans, you know. So.
Hi, I'm from Samuel Jackman Middle School, and I was just wondering, what do you guys do for your solos? Do you write it down, or do you go up the chords, or how do you end up making a solo that sounds so good?
So what I try to do when I'm going to play a solo is when I bring the horn up to my lips, I have no idea what I'm going to play until I start playing. And so I'll play a phrase, and that phrase will kind of lead me to what I'm going to play next. It's like telling a story, and so you say one thing, and then it kind of leads you to the next thing, and then you're also listening to the people in the band with you. They might play something on piano that might make you think of something else, so then you might play that. So.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Say yeah, say oh. Make some noise, oh. Make some noise if you wanna share your lighter. And let it shine,
So thank you. I'd like to invite the Preuss team up to the dais. I'm going to join you at the table.
Sounds good.
So let's first start with introductions. I'll let you self-introduce, and please include what you do, what your role is with the school, and specifically what your role has been in terms of your interface with the program. Daryl, you want to start?
Okay. My name is Daryl Rysberg. I'm the system administrator at the Preuss School, and so I'm in charge of all of the IT, pretty much everything IT at my school. And so we've been doing the SFJAZZ concerts for 3 years now, I think. Yeah, and so it's been a matter of, okay, what equipment are we going to need? What's the venue going to be like? How are we going to plan it out? And just setting it all up and having a great concert for the kids.
My name is Mercy Huang, and I'm the music director and teacher at the Preuss School, UCSD. And my role in this program is that 3 years ago, our principal, Mr. Barton, connected with the San Francisco Jazz and, say, let's try this program. So we started 3 years ago with only 20 eighth graders participated in the music room. And then the next year, we have another art class join us. So we had 50 students participated also in the music room. And this year's a breakthrough. We changed the location to the Walton Center. And then we have 7 classes attended, 200 students participated. I really, really appreciate it. Our students have this opportunity to listen to such a high quality concert.
Thank you. And I should also mention that the Preuss School alone exceeded the entire audience that was at SFJAZZ. That's partially because it just so happened that there was Oakland schools went on strike during that time. But it was wonderful that the artists were still able to play to a theoretical full house because you guys did a great job of bringing in an audience.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tamima Noorzay, and I'm the Fine Arts Chair at the Preuss School, UCSD. So I teach studio art classes and AP art history classes. And 3 years ago, when this opportunity came up, it seemed like a Herculean effort from our perspective. And Daryl was wonderful in taking it on. I didn't know how it was going to come out, but that very first year was a good learning curve for us. My students have participated the last 2 years, so I've brought my art classes in. We listen to jazz in the art studio on a daily basis anyway, and so it was a natural extension for them to attend the concert, and it's been a really enriching experience.
Excellent. Thank you. I should also mention, the demographic of the school is predominantly Hispanic, and jazz. SFJAZZ has a very strong commitment both to jazz and Latin jazz. So the opportunity to customize what we do is there in the making. So Daryl, let's go back to you. I know over the course of time, we've had some technical challenges. And I should also state that, the technology that we're currently using, of course, CENIC is flawless in what they do. However, some of the applications that are run on the network aren't always so flawless. And fact of the matter is, some of them are still in, well, I think they're all in kind of a development stage. So one of our roles in terms of our participation with CENIC is to help developers that are focused on audio and video, help them to improve their product. The notion, because jazz is a very improvisational and in the moment type of expression, the jazz performance is a true test of latency and of latency in terms of the music. So we do expect from time to time to have technical glitches. The particular pieces that we're using right now, matter of fact, we're using all of a program called UltraGrid that's developed out of the Czech Republic. And Milos, the developer there, arranges his schedule to get less sleep so he can monitor what's going on during our performances. And he's kind of like, he's the back end to give us instructions should we run into any challenges. And most of the time, he's able to assist us. But I know we've had technical challenges in the past. What's your experience, Daryl?
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be technological challenges, and it's just a matter of figuring out, okay, how do we get around this? And I think even this past year, for me, I just wish I had another person to go and change some of the settings, because when we switched to our auditorium, instead of just being in a classroom, there were the objects that I needed to work on were in 3 different locations. We had the computer and projector, we had the camera, and then we had our sound system, all on opposite ends of the auditorium. So I was just running around trying to do things, and that was a little bit tough.
I do recall.
Yeah.
Any other technical challenges from your side?
I think we really appreciate Daryl's hours of work before the concert, you know, to find out which speaker will be the best, because it's auditorium and it's also music. We need a high quality of sound. So we were really happy. But that was my concern, you know, when we changed the location from a classroom to the auditorium. So, but luckily it worked out well.
And we actually, every time that we do this, we have a lessons learned session and discuss the challenges. I know one year we actually had no sound, and that's kind of embarrassing for a concert. So in the next year, what we did is we recognized that we needed a backup. So we created a backup link that would allow, if that particular broadcast went down for any reason, the participating schools could move over to another link and at least experience the full concert, even if they weren't able to participate to the level that's possible through UltraGrid. But as they say, you know, all you have to do is prepare for it, and then you usually eliminate the possibility of it happening. And there was another safety net that we are exploring. We try and make sure this music gets into Title I schools across the state of California. And often Title I schools don't have the same level of resources that other institutions that aren't do. And that is sometimes that is sometimes a challenge. So we're actually looking at creating a shippable kit that has the major components of the program. So and with pre-configured PCs and interfaces. So really all that has to be done is we're trying to make it more of a plug and play opportunity. And so every year, every time we do it, we learn some things and we try and improve on that. So from your perspectives, what did you experience? Are there some things that you see we could do better?
I think one of the things that we would like is a little bit more time. I know the students want to speak with the musicians.
Yes.
And it's hard to stage a concert on a school day. Every school has a different setup in terms of block schedules or class times. And so to fit the students into that little block of time can be challenging. But I know that they wanted to really interface more with other students and the musicians.
Very good point. We also have a version of the program where we're dealing with public libraries, and there's not as much of a time constraint. It would be great. Sometimes we do 2 performances in a morning session, so it's pretty tight. I agree. It would be great if there were more time for the artists to actually interact, and we're looking at scenarios about the programming that will make that possible. Yeah. Any other things? Any other suggestions in terms of improving what we've done in the past?
You know, I would like to have the program recorded and then sent out, you know, to other schools, because I think many other schools can benefit from this program, and so a recorded version, it will be good for us who participated in, but we can have a follow-up curriculum kind of feedback, because I've done a reflection after the concert and have many positive feedbacks. But musically, I would like to have the students to hear the same piece again, and we can analyze it musically. So that will be my suggestion.
That's great. Well, if we haven't made the link available to you, then I'll certainly do that when we get back, so you can do that. Which leads into another question in terms of the integration of the concert with the curriculum. Do you see more opportunity for that to take place, and do you see value in that?
Well, certainly we have a very large curriculum piece that we're integrating in the visual arts class. So this experience not only deepened their connection to jazz and the historical pieces that were presented in this particular concert, which were highlighting human rights on a global scale. That was the thematic foundation for this year's concert. We are also collaborating with a photojournalist that's coming to the UCSD campus that will be running a workshop with my students. His name is Rysberg, and he travels all around the world documenting the aftermath of war from a very personal level. So we've collaborated with not only UCSD, but also another program that provides portraits for children all over the world that have been refugeed or abandoned in the war situation, and to kind of elevate their spirits. And so I've brought three pieces together here between the humanitarian efforts and raising awareness that the San Francisco Jazz concert brought to the students, reflecting on the music and the spoken word that was also presented during the concert that moved my students very deeply, and then put that together with the visual art so that they're seeing art as activism. And I feel like this concert was a call to arms, or call to activism, to make a move to support human rights all over the world. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I also, on a local since the Preuss School teachers have actually all the levels have covered this human rights issue. One of my reflection activity after the concert is just a general reflection, and also ask how many other teachers from the Preuss School. Preuss School is 6 to 12 grade school. So as from 6th grade to 12th grade, how many of your teachers have projects that related to this issue? And there's so many of them. You know, we have like slave projects, and we have all humans have rights project. You know, so what I feel is this concert really deepen and also give the breadth, you know, to our students' understanding of this particular issue, which is very important. And I would like to read a couple my students' reflection to see how impactful for the concert to our students. One 10th grader, Stephanie Rios, it says, this concert is a peaceful and creative way to address the human rights issue. And another student says this concert is very moving and shows the power of music. So, you know, it's just from 2 of the students, I have 50 students attended the concert that day. So I really appreciate you giving us this opportunity.
Well, thank you. I had no idea that you were using it in such a way. Have you done anything like Daryl? Have you used UltraGrid since in any other capacity since we started using it?
Yeah, actually, we have a Lego league at the school, and they like to have a live feed of what's happening on the boards. That's kind of hard for everyone to see. So it's just a matter of setting up some cameras, pointing them at the boards, and then you can stream it on a projector somewhere else. And it's such low latency that it just looks great. And all basically they can score it, they can watch how their robot performs and know, you know, what tweaks they're going to need to make to their robots without having to completely crowd around this small little table.
That's cool.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're trying to do is encourage nodes of operation that are currently on the system, and you know, like your school and other schools without the facilitation of SFJAZZ do projects also. Have you ever considered that?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. All right. So I'd like to turn to our audience now, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Hi, John Dundas, CENIC. Mount, something I know you do with some of your master classes, I don't know whether it's possible in this particular program or not, but would the technology you're using allow, say, the distribution of the musicians, instead of having them all at SFJAZZ performing, perhaps they could be distributed among each of the participating institutions and yet still perform as an ensemble, giving even greater interaction with the students, but allowing them to see how that ensemble works together. Is that possible?
Funny you should mention that, John. We consider the exchanges from the stage program to be our point of entry for beginning to understand what the network is capable of. We're working on a couple of programs where, one, we integrate UltraGrid because of its high quality video with another piece called JackTrip, which was developed out of Stanford University. And those JackTrip, Milos and Chris Schaaf, who is the developer of JackTrip, have actually worked with me on exactly that and doing masterclass exactly like that. And since that point in time, since that initial endeavor, they've actually started working together. Because prior to that, it was JackTrip and Skype, and that was not a satisfactory experience. So we are looking for opportunities to do that. We call that level 2. The third level, then, just to continue the program, actually deals with auditions and performances and things of that nature. And in that category, we're working with another application called LOLA. Probably anyone familiar with LOLA? Yeah. So we actually look, because every time you take a step up that ladder, it costs more money. It requires more technical expertise. So our biggest push right now is to have as many schools and libraries, not just in California, but actually across the nation, participate in that program. And I should mention the 2 organizations or 2 companies that have been a tremendous help in terms of our own acquisition of equipment and build out our Cisco. Cisco is helping us right now with some network upgrade acquisitions, and also AT&T. AT&T got wind of our program and made a substantial grant to us, so we would be able to further that and provide those boxes to send out, those pre-configured cases to be sent out to schools that can't afford to do so. However, the technology has advanced since we began that, and Daryl was sharing with me, they're using some pretty easily accessible equipment to do what we're doing. Yeah. You want to share that?
So for the most part, for our video, we just have a little $150 webcam that is available everywhere, and we just hook that up, run it through USB, and then just pipe the audio out of whatever speakers we have available, and it turns out pretty good.
And we actually, believe it or not, sometimes $150 is a barrier. We've actually shipped out our own webcams for that exact same reason. So, thanks. Okay, any other? Yes.
Thank you. Devin Winthrop, AT&T, nice segue. Had 2 kids go through jazz programs. They're both in college now. Having seen the proliferation of jazz in the schools now, all the way down in the elementary, they get feedback mainly from going to jazz festivals. And we know that's not always affordable for some of these schools to do that. With this, can you see having a virtual jazz festival or virtual master classes where not only the students, but the teacher themselves can get feedback from a professional, from a professor, for things that it would normally get from a jazz festival.
Funny you should mention that. We actually are considering a couple of segues into one, providing live concert through the higher ed environment. And at this point, it's simply a model where there will be, it's not distributed, it's one location, and we would pump those out to various campuses that have the technology and are interested in it. We find that the base of our artists roster, they want to participate at a high level, and so they are not a barrier in terms of rights and pushing these things out. The festival concept, I see a possibility for that. That seems reasonable. I could also see, and if we're dealing with the younger audience, the K through 12 audience, as they become acclimated to the music and progress, if schools are available or if libraries are available, that's certainly an opportunity.
Where I see that is I also am president of the music boosters for high school supply.
Oh.
We have a very large festival we put on every year in the West. It's fortunate to start up. I was just wondering if a school that's a fledgling jazz program could have a virtual festival to start with maybe a few people there locally, then eventually grow it. We were at 30 years this year, and the director would talk about how it started just at what is now our junior high. One little, two little venues. Now we're 2 locations, 7 venues. It's built up. It's took a long time and a lot of work behind it.
Congratulations.
Thanks. So just thinking about it, for a school with very little income, very little money, we don't have any support. It's all parent funded and fundraisers. But perhaps doing a virtual would be much more cost effective, something that a director could get behind or a small booster program could get behind and start that route, working in hand with you guys and build it up from there, because it is one of our biggest fundraisers.
That's exciting, and we actually have students coming all the way from the Sacramento area to participate in some of our programs, namely the High School All-Stars, a very high award-winning group.
My son was part of that, yes.
Hey, congratulations. And they kind of sweep Monterey every year. So that's a great idea. I'm certainly interested in pursuing that, taking that back to the education team. It would be easy to do, and especially since the talent wouldn't have to go anywhere. So.
Yeah, because I talked to a lot of other booster, like the Berkeley School, their boosters. They're asking, how do you get moving? How do you get it forward? They don't have the capital to start a festival. So something like that was quite interesting.
Well, let's talk more about that.
Most definitely.
Okay.
We're almost at time.
Okay.
Michal Krasik-Tesnet. I don't have a question, just a note. I'm a part of the UltraGrid team. About the low budget gear like USB cameras and other stuff, just be aware that they are introducing additional delay. So any cheap device is really shrinking your area you are able to cover by collaborative work. It means like in optimistic scenario, if I have higher price gear, I am able to do, let me say, collaborative concert in between San Francisco and LA, which is about 60 milliseconds. But when I have a USB stuff, I think I can have something in between San Francisco and Monterey. So you need to think this way to have a large events.
And completely agree. And that's actually why we have a tiered approach to our programs. Our biggest concern right now is to proliferate jazz throughout the country. And we see the options of that. And the biggest bang for the buck is working with the public schools and the public libraries. And quite frankly, for the opportunity to get in front of millions of future SFJAZZ members, we are willing to deal with a little latency. So, but I appreciate that.
And also think about your firewalls.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, we like to build bridges, not firewalls. But no, well noted. Okay, anything else?
Hi, this is Mike with Chapman University. I was just curious, when you do, what forms have you been able to exercise with actually having a performance where you can distribute that across the nation? And even though latency isn't necessarily an important part of it because you don't rely on the collaboration from them, but you want to still kind of distribute at a high quality over your internet 2 bandwidth circuit, the actual concert or the performance. Have you been able to explore that type of opportunity?
So in a non-distributed capacity?
Well, you're still distributing the content, but you're not looking for the feedback.
I mean, in terms of a single location where the artists are, or distributed?
Distributed.
Okay. So you know, we've had some tests. It's certainly not at production level at this point. You know, we've had some tests, and in those occurrences, it's either been LOLA or the combination of UltraGrid and JackTrip. And you know, one good part of the improvisational nature of jazz, it you know, sometimes it gets a little esoteric, and that's okay, because people you know, they're in the moment. We probably couldn't do as much if we're only working with standards, but because we work on the cutting edge, you know, we've been able to put Jason Moran and Jerry Allen and Vijay Iyer and have them perform together and actually speak to how it spoke to them. So, okay. Thanks. Okay, thank you very much. I'd really like to thank you and your institution for being such a support to the SFJAZZ throughout the years and staying with us as we continue to develop this. It's a true collaboration, and I should just thank you very much.
Well, we really appreciate the opportunity. Our students' lives have been enriched and connected to the larger art community. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.